All right, Josh Swart, welcome to the Leadway podcast. Pumped to have you on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, you fix and flip, you do new builds out in North Carolina. You're one of the bigger dogs out here. So it's going to be really fun to kind of break down what you're doing, what you're seeing in the market. But, I really want to start back to before you got into real estate. So your Facebook profile says you were a janitor 7 years ago. So how did you go from janitor to real estate investor?
Yeah, that's it's a fun story. I, believe it or not, my career started out as a firefighter. Like that was my the trade that I went to school for. This was 12, 13 years ago. Got a job full time at the fire department. In high school, I'd work construction, and then when I got on the fire department on my off days, because we had, it was like a 24-hour shift rotation.
Yeah.
I was still remodeling houses, working for other investors. And then at a certain point, you just kind of feel like your life is passing you by and you're just working all the time. So I had an opportunity with my wife to go overseas, to live 2 years in Southeast Asia. And during that time was when I just started trying to understand the mindset and methodology behind investing. So reading books, listening to podcasts, courses, all that stuff is it was kind of like a 2 year masterclass for me. And then when I moved back to the States, we landed in North Carolina because that's where my wife's family was at. And we had our kids, my first kid at that point. And the only job that I could get was a janitor at a gym. And so a local family owned gym, just, here in the Concord area. And so that was it. I had to do that for a year. And I applied all over the place thinking I'm like the most qualified individual. But I mean, dude, we were starting over. I was broke. I had to do whatever it took to be able to put food on the table for my wife and my young daughter at the time. I think she was about a year and a half old. So yeah, 7 years. Well, not now, it's probably 8 years ago, but yeah, it's a janitor.
Yeah, that's a scary time when you're just trying to figure out money and finances, and especially when you have a kid. Like me and my wife talk about that where we're at right now. I'm like, man, I am so glad we don't have kids right now.
Yeah.
But, that's just a lot of pressure. And so being able to jump into something like real estate investing, where everybody's saying you can make $10,000 a month, what pulled you into the real estate side after having that job, and what started to get some legs under it?
Well, the hard thing is after spending 2 years heavily, in call it the personal development
Yeah.
stuff, reading books, everything. And so I feel like I had the mindset of as I was reading stuff, it spoke a language that I felt like I spoke my whole life, and it put words to things that I'd been thinking my whole life. Like I didn't fit in well in school. I didn't do well in school. I wasn't like a straight A student. Um, but there's something in me that came alive when I was reading this stuff that I was like, this is what I want to do. So the hardest thing for me is coming out of that into a job where I'm punching in a clock, working for, I don't even know, 15, 17 bucks an hour. Um, being subject to my circumstances, but at the same time, like working so hard to improve upon my future for my family, all of that stuff. So, like, the whole time while I'm doing this uh, job, I was after work, I would be driving for dollars, like trying to find houses, writing letters, calling people. I would clock out of my lunch hour and I speed down to the courthouse to watch the auctions, speed back, clock back in. So I was like very much integrated into like, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, and like whatever it takes to get there. Um, so I was all in, right? And it was just a matter of like putting in the reps. And the first deal that I did came from a guy at the gym that I was at, like funnier thing or not, but I would talk to him all the time about real estate. And eventually I think he got tired of me asking him questions and, hey, here's a deal that I'm going to pass on, but you should buy it. Like you'll make money. And so that was the first, just by talking to people in my network, exposing myself to it, trying to like find a way to make it work. It started even as being a janitor. So
Yeah, and that's the best, version of what they tell you to do. It's like you should be telling everybody that you're buying houses because you never know what's going to come out of it. So it's like you probably had no idea that person was, doing deals, and it's like, hey, I have this one over here. And that's how I hear a lot of people's stories get started is, they just start talking about, hey, this is what I want to get into. I know Brandon Turner, he's got the same story about buying one of his first multifamily apartments. That it was just somebody at his church, and they said, "Hey, we have a something unit over here. Do you want to buy it?" And it
exactly.
was, yeah. So that's the best way to be able to get in, and I love that part of your story. So, where did it go from there? So you buy this house, do you flip it, do you wholesale it, and where does it scale from there?
Yeah, I mean, I flipped it, borrowed money from family, friends, whoever I could get money from to be able to make that deal happen. And ultimately, in the end, it I think I walked away with like $1,000 from that property. There really wasn't a lot of meat on the bones, and probably a lot of that was just due to like it was an old mill home in Concord, right? And I'm like,
I own one. Yep.
exactly. So, but it sold. I did make a little bit of money. Um, all of my private lenders got paid back with interest. And I had a deal under my belt. Like that was proof of a concept. It was a heck of a lot cheaper than going to college. It was a heck of a lot cheaper than paying for a $40,000 mentorship course or whatever. But like I had proof of concept. Like I was a real estate investor. So from there, you know, during the time I was heavy into, the Bigger Pockets podcast, the Burr method, all that stuff. And so I was like, I'm going to change my life by burning properties. And like in 3 years, I'm going to be financially free and all that stuff. And, I think it's just kind of a gateway drug into business ownership and entrepreneurship, kind of like breaking you out of the system. But yeah, from there, we flipped another one, bought a rental, subdivided a lot off, sold the lot, bought another flip. 2018, 2019 started to increase a little bit more in volume until like the end of 2019 was where I was like, hey, you know what? I can quit my job and flip houses, right? Um, and so the end of 2019 is when I walked away from my full time job. I had started building new construction in 2019. And so I had a bunch of projects coming up to completion at the beginning of 2020 whenever like the lockdowns hit, everything went
Mhm.
wild. I had a house that was coming on the market and I'm like, do I put hand sanitizer in here? Like what am I supposed to do? And so
Maybe two bottles.
maybe two bottles, yeah, a couple extra pumps. Um, yeah, so like I really came up right before some of the craziest times in the market where we had a lot of appreciation and just kind of a frenzy. So that was a wild time. But yeah, I mean everything kind of just took off from there.
So back before, 2021 hits and 2020 and COVID, what kind of volume were you doing from there? Because it's, I want to talk about the different markets that you've seen from, hey, you got started right before the big boom in real estate, everything changed, and now it's changing again in the other direction. So what kind of volume were you doing during those three different periods?
Yeah. I don't know specific numbers, but it was probably something like 1 to 2 deals in 20, like one in 2017, 2 to 3 in 2018, and then like 10 to 12 in sorry, in 2019, I think I probably had 10 to 15 that I was doing in that
Mhm.
range. And then 2020 is when things exploded and we did like close to 40 deals that year. So um there was kind of like this upward trajectory uh during those beginning years.
Gotcha. And then, so 2021 hits, tons of appreciation. How many, rentals were you holding at that time? Your strategy shift from I want to flip more or I want to start keeping more rentals?
I think my strategy's always been I want to keep. Um, as many rentals as possible until you have a lot of rentals and you're like, I don't want to keep these anymore.
Yeah.
This is a lot. This is a
Then you
lot
go
of
to multifamily, something a little bit easier to manage.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, so the strategy has always been to keep as many as possible. Because that was what was ingrained in me from the beginning. It's like, hey, you keep rentals, you're going to cash flow, you're going to change the course of your family's financial future. But I will say is I don't know how many I had at that point, maybe 10 to 15 by the time 2021 came around. Because 2020 we bought a lot, 2021 we bought a lot. But it was the ones that I bought in the early years, like 2018, 2019, that at that point had appreciated a lot. Rents had gone up and then interest rates came down. And so those ones that I bought at the beginning that, hey, they're cash flowing like, $100 a month, $150 a month. And I'm like, I'm doing it, right? When when the interest rates came down and rents came up and the appreciation went up too, I refinanced like a package of homes. And it was like my payment went down, tenants moved out, I bumped the rents up, and I pulled out like 25 or 30,000 per house,
Wow.
like a cash out refi. And so that was when I had the realization. I was like, this is really cool. Like the to be able to stay in the market, you buy properties and then you capitalize on one opportunity in time to where you can refinance and pull out money, tax free cash out refi, and then I'd use that money to buy more stuff and then grow exponentially from there. So um, even though they didn't make a lot of money in the beginning, that one moment there where I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep buying a lot more of these. So
Yeah, reinforces the concept, and I mean, you know, it's what everybody was teaching at that time. It's like, hey, you buy, and eventually, a couple years, you'll have that loan pay down, and you'll be
yeah,
able to refi, pull money, and rents are going to go up. So, I want to compare that to now and what you're seeing in the market because we had the big ramp up. Everybody made a lot of money during that time. They started their courses, teaching other people, and now it's a different time in the market to where, the 1% and the 2% rule doesn't exist really, or it's very, very difficult to find. So,
yeah.
how are you adjusting in this market from back in 2021 when it ramped up?
Adjusting from a like a rental standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say a strategy standpoint. Like, are you keeping more? Are you flipping more? What changed during this last couple of years?
Yeah, things are great until like Q4 of 2022, and I think a lot of people got kicked in the mouth. I had a bunch of flips on the market. They sold for less. They took longer to sell. I went over budget. Um, I think between Q4 of 22 and then Q1 of 23, I lost like $100,000 in flips,
Wow.
like upside down on them. And so that right there was a realization of like, oh, okay, this can go south if you're not sticking to like true principles, right? Because I think a lot of people in that time window got a little bit loose and was like, hey, people are just paying money for stuff and just go like as much inventory as you can move as possible. Um, so ever since that moment, it's been really just trying to adapt to the market. Um, Interest rates have gone up substantially. Uh, it's really hard to do the Burr method to cash out on traditional houses because there's a disconnect between property values, the rent, and then the interest rates, and like trying to put that whole picture together makes it very, very challenging. But the biggest pivot that I've made is one is focusing on creative offers with portfolio owners or sellers, where hey, we can't pay your price and make it work with a cash offer. Will you work with us on seller financing? And so the amount of seller financing notes that we've been able to purchase, or properties that we've been purchased that are seller financed, where interest rates are in the 5%, 3% range, that allows us to be able to cash flow, right? it there's an age old adage. It's like your price, my terms, or your terms, my price. There's a lot of different levers that we can pull with creative financing like that to where we can make deals work. So a lot of the most of the if not all of the single families that I've purchased from beginning of 2023 until now have all been seller financed. And so that's the one big pivot. And the second big pivot is since we started building like in 2019 and things really ramped up, now we have our own in-house construction company. We're able to build at a really good price. And our entry price into the land and the house is right at about the 1% rule of rents. And so I'm building brand new products. We've got warranties on it, all of that stuff. And so in theory, our capital expenditures are a lot less on those than older homes. Even though you remodel them, you're still going to run into issues down the road. And so the biggest pivot in my strategy has been just build to rent, like building houses and then renting them out. So while we're building houses to sell, we also build houses to rent, helps offset our taxable income on the build to sale. And then just building a portfolio of uh, houses that are new within the last few years that are rented out and stabilized so that I can exit at some point, sell it to a portfolio hedge fund or somebody who wants to buy relatively new homes that are stabilized, beautiful, like
Yeah.
not a 1920s mill home in Concord, right? Like that's a really hard thing to sell at scale for a rental portfolio, but new homes, they do. They're concrete slab. They're a lot more attractive to institutional buyers.
How did you guys get into the new builds rather than flips? Because at that time you were still, like you said, doing about 10 to 15 a year. Like how did you get into the new build part rather than flipping?
Yeah. So I mentioned it earlier. The very first rental that I bought, um, it was a double lot. I subdivided it, sold it off to a friend, and then I ran into another property that was just probably the most disgusting house that I've ever bought. Um, and I looked at the lot. I was like, "Hey, this is really big." Looking at all of the city development ordinances, I think I can split this up three ways. So I went back to that friend of mine and I said, "Hey, I saw you bought this lot from me. You built a house in like 3 months and sold it. I've got this one over here that I think I could do that again. I'll sell you this one for the same price, but only if you teach me how to do it on this other lot here. And then you can list it on the back end. Like, I'll make it worth it to you." So he agreed. And then that was basically like the beginning stages of that. That was in 2019. And then so, you know, once I figured that concept out, it was how many more times can I do this? Man, I do this as many times as possible. And so that was like my sole focus. It was like calling landowners on larger parcels in our area that I knew the zoning stuff and just doing that as many times as we possibly could. And so from basically from that point until now, that's been like one of our main strategies is building, buying lots, tearing down houses, subdividing land, all that stuff.
Yeah, so can you break down a little bit of, the two different strategies of flipping the houses versus just buying the lots and building? Because I see a lot of flippers, they go from, maybe they're doing 20 a year and then they start doing new builds and they're like, "Hey, this model is so much easier and simple from beginning to end." Can you break that down a little bit on why that may be or why somebody, transitions over from the flips?
Yeah, the biggest difference between the two is on a flip, you can have a plan and have everything like on paper, bids, estimates, all that stuff. But as soon as you start tearing open walls, everything can change, right? And one change leads to another, and there's a lot of surprises that may happen. And then on the back end, when you sell it, you always have the inspection report, and it doesn't matter how great of a job you did, you went over the top. You're always going to be labeled with this like grimy flipper who's cutting corners. And like, even though you try to do everything right, the inspection report is like miles long of all of the issues with the house. With new builds, the biggest opportunity for uncertainty is just in the land itself. So if you learn good land underwriting, you can identify issues, you can identify potential, soil problems, things like that. Everything from the foundation up is the same. Like there's no surprises, right? It's concrete, it's wood, it's drywall, it's insulation, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, all that. It's the same over and over again. So it's a lot more scalable. So you can manage more projects with less staff than flips because every flip is different. Every corner is different. You're modifying houses that are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, sometimes 100 years old, and depending on which city you're in. So the same management intensive uh, part of flipping where you may have one project manager who can really only manage like 5 to 6 at a time. You can have our project managers now, our target is for them to have 20 builds per person. And that's a healthy place for them to be. It could be a little bit more, it could be less, but the same work output gives us a vastly different return on both sides. So I will say on the flipping side, you get a good deal on a flip, you can make great money. Like you can do really, really well. And there's, for the most part, new builds, it's going to be the same every time. Like you've got your comps, you got your land prices. The only way for you to be able to get a good deal is to get your land for really cheap or subdivide it off a house and you're getting it for free. So people, on both sides want to be the other. They're like, hey, I want to be a developer. They're making all the money, but also like, dude, I've done flips that do really, really well. Right. So you can't, the grass is always greener on the other side, but both have their pros and cons.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've seen from both sides. Is like the people doing new builds, they never want to go back to flips just because of all the surprises. It's like I've flipped houses and we open up that one wall and it's another 10 grand. It's like,
Yes.
oh my gosh. So um and then I've seen some newer investors try and go straight to the new builds, and but you're just kind of trading one game for the other because you're still looking for a deal on both sides, but now you're just looking at land and a lot more of your work is done up in the beginning. So how are you evaluating the land if that's a good buy or not?
Yeah, there's actually a pretty extensive underwriting process that we go through. One is, you have to identify utilities. Is it city water and sewer, or is it well and septic? Um, if it is well and septic, does it perk? Do you have space for a septic system and a well and a house in proximity to the neighbors also, right? Is it, if it's city utilities, is it below grade to where you have to have a pump and grinder to pump up to the septic system? Are there power lines overhead? What's the soil conditions like? Is it a slope? Is it flat? We take a probe rod out and punch it into the soil to test for if there's any foreign objects in the soil, like there may be a house or something buried there before, or rocks or whatever. And sometimes when you probe it, it's like butter and it just like goes right in. And like that's going to be tough soil for you to work with. Probably gonna have to do an engineered foundation. So like there's all sorts of things that we do to underwrite the land. But for the most part, if you got something that's in the city, relatively flat, got access to city utilities, like that's gold right there. That's gold. Um, so I like those. But yeah, the underwriting process can be pretty extensive. But if you learn the tricks of the trade, like you can underwrite something pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's the different ideas because for a house you walk through, you figure out like, all right, bathrooms, kitchen, we're looking at foundation, roof, but like you said for the land, there's all of these extra steps. So from being able to get under contract on a lot to get to the finish line to where you're saying, okay, well this, if it needs perked, like what's the timeline looking on that from, you know, being able to buy it does it take a couple of weeks or what's that timeline like?
Um, we've got like a standard checklist and stuff. Like if something is a septic lot, like we'll send out our soil scientist. It's usually like a 2 to 3 week turnaround for them to go out and do their soil testing. We always get surveys before we close. Like if all that stuff checks out, we can close on something. Usually it's like 3 to 4 weeks, and most of that stuff doesn't even require us to actually physically go out to the lot for an extensive due diligence, other than a quick walk, probe it, get an idea for topography, all that stuff. With a house, it's the exact opposite. I mean, it doesn't matter how good of a due diligence you do, like you have to physically crawl under each portion of the house to see every possible
Hmm.
with the crawl space, attic, you can't see behind the walls, all that stuff. So everything's out there in front of you with the land piece, which is what I like. But with houses, it's a different story.
Yeah, just less surprises, and that's we don't want surprises in real estate for sure.
Exactly.
But going back to what your business looks like today, I know you said, you're building, flipping. Um, what does your entire businesses look like today, and how do they all kind of work together?
Yeah. So we have our acquisition company where we're marketing to people, mostly in everything's inbound at this point. So people fill out a form on our website, they respond to mailers, things like that. And so that's where we're finding off market properties. And then we also brought construction in house a little over a year and a half ago. And so all of our construction operations are in here too, from permitting through to completion, multiple project managers, all that stuff. So staff wise, there's 12 people here. And then, yeah, we're able to run a pretty lean operation just off of that. We're not only building for ourselves, we're also building for other investors too. Now we have our systems in line. So, yeah, bringing construction in house was a great move. We talked before this call about buying businesses, but sometimes there's opportunities that things can dovetail in with your current operation, and they're just really great moves. And so that's probably one of the better moves that I've made in business recently. But yeah, we build, flip, um, probably somewhere around the 100 properties a year mark right now. And I, I don't know if I want to do a lot more than that. If anything, now like bigger and more volume is not always better. Like it's easy to be attracted to these vanity metrics of, however many deals you do a year, but uh, maintaining profitability and like putting money in the bank, like that's super attractive, right? And so for us, it's refining things. It's dialing in our construction process to reduce costs, reducing our timelines. It's dialing in our underwriting on flips to get better deals, like deeper discounts. Like that's where my focus is right now. It's not a matter of like increasing the volume by any means.
Yeah, because at that point you're looking over quality over quantity. It's like you could bump it up to 150 to 200 a year, but what does that look like on the bottom line for sure? So, what does your role look like in all of these businesses? Where do you spend the most of your time?
Um, right now, I way too many, way too many seats. For the most part, I feel like I've got a heavy role in as like a CFO on the financial side. Like there's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of just money's moving, right? And in order to keep things afloat, you know, construction loan draws and making sure people get paid, all that stuff. But I did just hire a controller, and so I've got somebody coming on board to help a lot with that. But I also still go out on appointments. Like I love meeting people, negotiating deals, and just getting in it. So that's the other portion of what I do too. So with our sales team, like I'm still very much involved with that, but I don't make it out into the field much to like go look at flips and projects and stuff. And it's even hard to go out and film stuff right now, just with how busy things are. But yeah, for the most part, I'm like, I spend a lot of time on email.
Yeah,
Way
you're
too much
you're
time.
you're in it for sure. You mean AI hasn't been able to read all your emails and
No,
respond and give you 10 hours a week back?
no, not at all. AI has helped out a ton, like a lot. I use it a lot, but no, it cannot replace me.
For sure. I think that's what that was the hot thing a couple months ago when Claude came out and it's like, oh, it's gonna replace me. It's like I don't think it quite does that.
Well, it supplements me very well. It exponentially uh, increases my productivity.
Yeah, so break down like a little bit of how it specifically does that. Because AI is just kind of like a broad term, but it's more interesting to see how people are actually using it. So how and what do you use throughout the day that it helps you do that?
Yeah, like one, I'll just give you one great thing that it's doing for us is one, we've got right now we have, I don't know how many builds going. Let's just say it's like 60. Um, that's a lot of invoices from subcontractors that our project managers approve them, right? But from a financial side, it's impossible to overlook every single one of those, compare it to the house plan, price, audit them, right?
Hmm.
So we have all of those invoices come into our project management system, and I've got Claude set up with that to where it has all of our house plans. It's got our standardized pricing from subcontractors, and so every time an invoice comes in, it's comparing. Hey, this is abnormally high, or this is wrong. And so every day I get a report from it. At the end of the day, here's all the invoices that came in. These are the ones that I've flagged that are abnormal. These are the ones that are normal pricing within range, and these are the ones that could potentially be off. And so I'm prioritizing my time and only looking at the ones that are, hey, why is this like $300 more than normal? And usually there's an explanation for it, right? Our guys aren't just trying to get one over on us, but
Hmm.
it's stuff like that that still gives me the peace of mind of knowing that, hey, somebody is paying attention to these things, and it compresses the amount of time that I have to spend to do that one thing, right? um Simple things like just having it plugged into my email to be able to, my bookkeeper sends over, hey, what are these transactions for, and upload that into Claude, and it searches and finds all these things for me, and it's running in the background on my second monitor right there while I'm doing other things. So those are ways that it's supplementing the work that I'm doing already to just help me out so much, right? um yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to see where all of that goes because like I saw on the other day somebody said Claude replace me looking for deals. It's like okay it can, but I don't believe that to a point.
No,
Because you it can do very good things, but it still just can't think for itself, and
exactly.
that's where I think a lot of people kind of misread that, and I'm still learning how to kind of fit that into what I'm doing. So it's gonna be fun. But you brought up social media on the side, so you do a pretty good job on social media. What all goes into that, and how has that what has that done for your business?
Yeah. Like 4 years ago, I hired a guy, and I was like, hey, I think social media is going to be super uh, impactful for our business. And it was a big part of his job description was just following me with a camera. And I just wanted to talk about what I was doing. Like
Hmm.
when people think real estate investor, like the guy who's buying houses and flipping houses, building houses, renting, all that stuff, I want them to think about me. So like strictly like a marketing tool, but also like I want to be able to raise money very easily. And so the best way that I knew how at the time was like, hey, I want to just post consistently. I want people to know what I do so that there's no questions. And so um, I have no desire to be a influencer or a course guru. I think it's like
I think
so
I think
ick.
you have that status. You have quite a few YouTube subscribers, so
Yeah, but I appreciate that.
yeah.
I don't I think it's very common, way too
Mhm.
common these days for people to start doing things, they post videos, people like it, and all of a sudden they're selling a course and
Yeah.
they're a guru. And like, dude, you've been doing this for not long, not long enough to be teaching people how to do it. And so that wasn't really my desire or intention from the get-go, but really just raising money and I want people to bring me deals. Those were the two things. And so I'm spending all this money in marketing. Like, why don't we just buy some camera gear, make some videos? There's gonna be a cost to edit it. And I think that that's going to produce like a very similar result. And so, yeah, I don't think that I'd never expected it to blow up as it has. And, we get deals from it. It's very easy to raise capital from people. It's like, I know the people that are watching my stuff and I can call them or text them and say, hey, I've got a deal coming up. You want to be a partner on it? And it's very easy. And so from a branding perspective, it's done wonders for my business.
Yeah, definitely branding and credibility and just being able to share what you're doing. That's what whenever I got started, I had a conversation with a guy and he's like, whatever you're doing, just share it on social media. People are gonna find you, they might send you deals, but the biggest piece is gonna be the credibility that you're actually in the arena
Yeah.
doing things. So I love that because like being an influencer and a guru, like that's a really, really hot topic right now. I can't wait till it dies down a little bit. But it's so hard to stand out on social media. So that's when I do find somebody who has, lots of followers and a big page. It's like, how did that happen? And because, it's not by accident. Because you're putting out good content and it's just a completely different game. So it's really cool to see that and what you do with your podcast because you bring some pretty big time people on. So anybody listening, go check out Josh's YouTube page after this episode, of course. He's got some really cool conversations on there with some local people in the area. But what's coming up for you guys that you're most excited about?
Mm. Um, I don't, dude, we've got a couple deals that we're doing. I don't know. We've got a lot of deals that we're doing right
There's
now.
got to be something bigger than that. Come on.
Um, dude, I don't have anything big. We've got a flip right now that we're doing that was probably gonna be my best ever. Like multiple six figures. So I'm stoked about that one. But dude, things at a certain point, things get so transactional in this business. Like uh to be honest, like I love what I do and we do a lot of it, but it takes a lot to get something to get me excited these days. I like seeing, the thing that I'm excited the most is like, I just hired a controller who's going to help probably take 20 to 30 hours a week of work off my plate. Like that's exciting to me. Um, I'm, I just stopped drinking coffee and I'm not uncomfortable and bloated all the time. That's exciting for me.
Oh, interesting.
Like I've got kids camp this week for my church and I'm taking a couple of days off to spend time with my kids and help out there. Like that's exciting for me. I like what this business has afforded me the opportunity to do. Um, I It's hard for me to get jazzed about properties.
Yeah.
I don't
Do
know.
you see a bigger carrot out there that you want to chase? It's like, hey, that might be interesting one day because the monotony of having a business the size that you have, like like you said, it's the same every day. It's the same deals, same piece of land, same new build, same invoices. It just is there any carrot out there you're interested in chasing one day?
Yeah, one day. I mean, I feel like I'm wired for business and the challenge of uh, building, creating, producing. And so I don't know what that carrot is now, but I would love to be able to invest in other businesses as like a, partner and advisor, like something in that role because, this is I've done this a few times. Started a business in Southeast Asia, right? Started a business here, and I didn't even mention this. The time between me being a janitor at the gym and then actually quitting, there was 2 years of where I took over a CrossFit gym that was failing, and then turned that thing around. And so I feel like God's wired me in a specific way to be gifted in business. And so whether that's I keep doing what I'm doing now for a long time, which I'm totally fine with, I'm good with that, or that, like you said, there's that other carrot that comes around that I have the opportunity to buy into or be a part of, like bring it on. But for now, like I'm enjoying where I'm at, doing what we do, surviving the crazy market cycles, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to watch. So for anybody interested in, watching your journey, keeping up with your podcasts and social media, or if they have deals to send you after me, what's
After
the
you,
best
of
place?
course.
What's the best place to go?
Best place is just hit me up on Instagram at Josh Swart, Swart. That's where you can find all of my links and shoot me a DM. Like I'm buying stuff all over. I've got a 1031 right now, so I need to find some sort of commercial property or something to buy. So by the time this podcast airs, it'll probably be outside my window. So I don't know if it's relative, but
That'll
um,
be next week. We got a pretty quick
all
turnaround
right,
over
I'll have
here.
like 2 weeks left. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Yeah, plenty of time. Plenty of
Yeah.
time. Awesome, Josh. Well, this has been a good conversation. I've always wanted to learn a little bit more about the new build. So, and you have a lot going on, so I really appreciate your time. I'll make sure to link all of Josh's information in the show notes below. But Josh, thank you so much. This has been a good one.
Yeah.
Uh, this has been Chris and Josh on the Leadway Podcast.